Hello everyone, I'm Kate Andrews. I'm one of the Chief Examiners here at ABRSM with a responsibility for specific needs.
And I'm James Risdon, I'm the Access Lead here at ABRSM.
We're thinking today about our motivations, our personal motivations for trying to get things right for our candidates who come to us with specific needs, with disabilities. So James, tell me a bit about that. What are your personal motivations?
Well, first and foremost, I'm a musician who happens to have a disability, so I've got a lived experience of what that's like and the challenges that presents. I've been through ABRSM exams and other exams, so I've got an interest in that area for myself, and I suppose in really simple terms a motivation to help other people through that process and make it as easy and enjoyable as possible.
And you said you've been through ABRSM exams and all that process. Yeah. What did those bring you as a disabled musician?
That's a really good question. In the early years, they just brought me parity with my friends, and like everybody else, you know, there's a certain aspect of, you know, everyone else in my school is taking an exam, and I'd like to do one for myself. But most recently, when I did my diplomas, it was more about having some professional recognition for the skills that I developed, and as a disabled musician, I suppose I probably had less work experience and less professional experience, so actually having a qualification with ABRSM on it and LRSM and all that kind of stuff was really helpful because it gave me some validation.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, I never thought about it like that.
Yeah.
Interesting. And I mean, James, you always talk really objectively about your experiences as a disabled musician, but there must have been times where there are really annoying things happen and really annoying barriers.
Oh gosh, yeah. Yeah, and I suppose what this job has taught me is that some of those barriers are man-made and we can get around those, and a lot of our work is about pulling down barriers, isn't it, and making those things possible. But there are also things that are just part of life, and when you have a disability, whatever that disability is, there are some things that are just going to be more difficult. So as an example, I grew up very near Dartington in Devon, where there used to be summer schools, and would go along every summer to learn the recorder and be around other recorded players, but I couldn't join in any of the ensemble work, the orchestras, the concerts, because I just couldn't sight read. So a big part of a summer school was, you know, at 4 o'clock you'd go and pick out music from a library and go and play it. Well, of course, I couldn't do any of that. It wasn't anyone's fault. And they were very encouraging and said, you know, if you tell us what you know, we can play that. But it wasn't particularly easy. So I suppose, my experience is that there are some things that you can get round, and some things that are just a bit more difficult. And I suppose our work here is about trying to lift the barriers to taking an exam or participating in that process of even preparing for an exam.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what motivates me.
Yeah. And I suppose for me, you know, my background, I'm a music therapist as well as an examiner and musician. So I've spent a lot of my career working with young people with complex disabilities, with complex needs. And also my personal life, you know, my own husband has an invisible disability, which you wouldn't know seeing him on the street, but means things like he needs to use the disabled toilet. And people get really cross if they see him walk into a disabled toilet and go, well, you're not disabled, you know, what are you doing taking up that space? And it makes me really angry. I think that's a really useful thing, actually, to know that although we're an organisation and, you know, in some ways quite corporate, actually the policy decisions are made by people that really care and are really sort of involved in that world as well.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but I've noticed in the time I've been at ABRSM, the whole conversation, both within ABRSM and in the wider music education sort of sector, has really changed when it comes to disability and access. There's much more confidence, there's much more open discussion about these topics, which I don't think there was 10 years ago, 15 years ago. I think it's a bigger discussion. Would you say that's the case for you? Yeah,
completely. And so often now at ABRSM, you and I are getting involved in projects right at the start to try and make things accessible and inclusive right from the beginning of a project. So as far as we're concerned, the future's looking really bright.
I think the difference I've noticed is that now I would say, looking at all of the organisations that are out there working in the field of music and disability and inclusion, if you are growing up today with a disability, there's a reasonable expectation that you could do something in music, that you could earn some money in music, have a career in music, be part of the musical landscape of the country. And I think that is a real change. And I think that's something that is to be celebrated. And I suppose my motivation for working here is that we can be part of that. You know, I'm really proud of our sponsorship of organisations like Open Up Music and the Musical Senses project at the Tri-Borough Hub. You know, these are projects which are not really related to our exam work, which people might know us best for, but they influence how we think about disability and inclusion, and they influence our understanding of what it's like, what those barriers are that we were talking about earlier.
Yep.
And that feeds back into conversations that we might have when we're developing a new qualification or a new initiative. We can begin to have those discussions much earlier, and we can be more informed than I think we would otherwise.
Yep.
Well, if you're a musician and you have a disability, or you're a teacher or a parent and you want to get in touch, it doesn't necessarily have to be about an upcoming exam. Please do get in touch. We're at specificneeds@abrsm.ac.uk.